Welcome into a solo edition of Box Office Quarterbacks. My name is Jeff. Today I am talking about Venom: The Last Dance, which is directed by Kelly Marcel, the writer of the first two Venom movies. Finally gets into the director's chair for this one. Obviously starring Tom Hardy once again. I don't know if this is going to be the last Venom movie ever made. Probably the last Venom movie for now, but the way general audiences kind of love these movies, I would be surprised if this was the last time we at least saw Venom and Eddie Brock together, even though how this movie ends. But this movie, I think, and with all the Venom movies in general, I think you could either look at it from two different perspectives. You can look at it from like hardcore comic book fans, Spider-Man enthusiast thinking, where it's like, hey, we got three movies of Eddie Brock and Venom, one mention of Spider-Man, and no fights between the two. You had Venom show up in Spider-Man No Way Home. That wasn't paid off in this movie. And you can choose to kind of sit back and critique everything that they kind of worked around when it comes to Spider-Man and that whole side of the Marvel universe. Or you could turn your brain off for like an hour and a half and enjoy the ride here. I elected to turn my brain off and enjoy the ride for what it was. And I had a great time with this movie. I'm not going to lie. It's not a perfect movie. There's a lot of stupid stuff in here. There's like a whole hippie family who breaks into Area 51 and there's no security. And then you have Venom and Eddie fighting this monster on top of a plane and the engine blows and you never hear what happens to the plane. Like there are plot holes and problems, but I had a great time watching this movie. And my theater, which was packed on opening night, I think had a great time too. Like this is a movie that general audiences really, really love. It's just like a character that doesn't take itself too seriously on the big screen. And I think that's why audiences kind of latch on to this. They like the humor, they like the back and forth between Eddie and Venom. Here, the story is it is what it is. Eddie's on the run after the end of Venom Let There Be Carnage. He is trying to get to New York City to escape what happened in San Francisco. He ends up on a detour that takes him to Area 51. That's where they were storing all the symbiotes that crashed into Earth at the beginning of the first movie, which surprisingly was only 1 year ago in the timeline of these three movies. But you get Juno Temple in here playing a scientist. You got some other uh, supporting characters who are pretty fun. Like I really did like this, and I love the opening sequence where Eddie is taking on the cartel here, where he is saving these dogs from being harmed, and he bites off all these cartel members' heads. Like it is a wild intro. There are some really fun sequences here. There's like a whole Vegas montage with Mrs. Chen, kind of like a wrap up between Eddie and her, and like a whole dance number. This movie and Joker Folie à Deux are probably polar opposites of each other. Uh, if you wanted a comic book movie that does not take itself seriously, as opposed to a movie that takes itself deathly seriously, this is your movie. And it is obviously not going to be one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. Like, this is not The Dark Knight. This isn't even Spider-Man Homecoming. It's not on the level of that when it comes to storytelling, but it's about having fun and kind of saying goodbye for now to Tom Hardy's portrayal of Eddie Brock and take it for what you will. This is probably going to be the standard of what we compare Venom to when a new actor is inevitably cast in this role. Like, you already know that the symbiote Spider-Man story is going to come into place with Tom Holland in the MCU at some point, probably during Secret Wars or after. Then you have the whole Knull thing here. If you were waiting for Knull to be like the big bad of this series, he is not in this movie that much. Like, he's really a bookend here. He sends this monster thing after Eddie and Venom. Eddie dies briefly in the first movie, and that's how the Codex is formed with him and Venom. All Venom's memories and Eddie's memories are stored within the Codex, and that's how Knull can locate him. So this is kind of like where our story begins, and then Knull is teased at the post-credit scene of this movie, saying, wait till they see me next," or whatever the hell he says. So I really don't care to see Knull again. Like, I don't know much about him in the comics as is. He's kind of a newer character. I was more kind of versed on Eddie and Venom in the 90s, especially the 90s Spider-Man cartoon, and then everything that kind of came after that, like Agent Venom and Flash Thompson and Matt Gargan as Venom. But I wanted to see like a street level Spider-Man, and I don't think we're going to get it. I think Knull will probably play a big part in every Sonyverse movie moving forward, because for some reason they still think that they can make like a villain Sinister Six matchup uh, going against a huge force, and that's probably going to be Knull if we even get to that point. But I would not mind, Eddie showing up in Secret Wars, even in Spider-Man 4. Like, I did have a good time, and like, obviously Tom Hardy is playing both parts here. He is playing the voice of Venom, heavily modulated, and Eddie, but the chemistry between those two on-screen characters are great. Like, they really got that part down from the comics, where the "We Are Venom" stuff is front and center. It's something that Topher Grace and Sam Raimi and that character massively dropped the ball on in Spider-Man 3. And obviously Venom was in that movie for like 15 minutes, but you really had like perfect casting here with Tom Hardy. He looks like Eddie Brock from the comics. He's a big, like, hulking dude. So you got that down. He is in New York City now, which is where the Daily Bugle is. J. Jonah Jameson exists in the Sonyverse, so you got that going for you. So I think there are ways to go with the story if they want it to. This is really the only 3 movies of the Sony Spider-Man verse that they've gotten right. And, Morbius was a huge, huge disappointment. Madam Web, I didn't even finish that movie. I think I got 15 minutes in. Like, all right, what is going on here? So, Craven, we don't know what that's going to be yet. Like, the trailers look super bloody and super gory, which is so random for Craven the Hunter, and a huge missed opportunity to not do Craven's Last Hunt on the big screen, where we have to have Craven be this somewhat redeemable hero. When we left our theater, we were talking outside. This guy came up to us and he did the "We Are Venom" voice to us. And that was pretty cool. Like, you can tell that this is what this movie set forth to do, is make this a popular character that people love, regardless of what you thought about the story. It definitely did its job. It's entertaining the general audiences. Joker Follow You Do was like the complete end of the spectrum. I think they kind of like were ashamed of the source material. Here they kind of embrace it, where they're like, hey, this is fun and colorful, and we're going to throw 6 different types of symbiotes at you, and we're going to have this huge fight at Area 51, and this is our movie. And it was very entertaining. If I was going to put it on the box office QB scale, I'd probably give this like a high starter. I think that's fair to say. Like, maybe even I can't go high as high as an all-star, but I can give it a high starter here. I think that it's enjoyable. Like, it's a great movie, probably to like throw on any Saturday afternoon, and you'll just kind of have a good time for an hour and a half. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on Venom 3 and where we could go with the Sonyverse, but we want to hear your thoughts. What'd you think about this movie? It seems like people are pretty divided on it, but yeah, tell us in the comments. We will be back very soon. Got a lot of comic book stuff to talk about. We have the season or series finale of Agatha all along. We don't know if this is going to go season 2 or not, but it's pretty crazy stuff happening in that show. Then the Penguin, that is like prestige TV right now, and I am loving that. We'll be talking about that in a few weeks. But I'm Jeff. This has been a solo edition of Box Office QBs. We'll talk to you guys very soon. Have a good one.